Hello people, Linker here, and this doesn't look right. There we go, let's get your stargazing priorities up to date to win the endgame. Today we're going to look over the old guide, explain the new benchmarks as well as mark some key hero movements, go over the new guide as a whole, and if you stay all the way through, I promise you a surprise that you're not prepared for. Starting with the old guide, it was published over 2 months ago, so much in the same vein to the recent tier list updates we had. The game is changing fast with reworks, new meta teams, and substitutions that change the dynamics quite a bit. The foundation is still solid. For example, it's still always suboptimal to get stars in your Stargazed hero, so don't get stars. But some things changed. At the time, Mortis was just getting discovered for Twisted Realm, and Alna was just introduced. I want you people's priorities on point, so like and subscribe to stay in touch. And now, let's get into the key changes. So on the left you see the old guide, on the right you see the new one, and the new one has 3 rows. Top row is what you should get in the early and mid game, middle row is what you're expected to get approaching the end game, and the bottom row are your end game priorities. Currently that's chapter 35, but I don't want to name chapters because these change. The devs obviously rework some of them, they buff, they nerf, everything left, right, and center. We've seen many changes in campaign recently. We also updated the icons for Alna and Mortis, speaking of which they both are gonna move up. As we said in the video, the initial Alna placement was on the safe side. So if you had all these heroes, you'd grab her. Now we know she's very strong, both as a carry enabler and as a stall mechanic. She requires a 9 out of 9 furniture, I can't stress this enough, and strong allies to work, which is why she's ranked lower than Lucretia and just barely Talene, but a well-deserved bump for Alna nonetheless. We saw her usage, she's very strong and becoming stronger by the second. Now the rise of heroes like Aiz and Alna alongside the lack of nerfs from Lilith lead to a strong power creep that we now essentially feel on all ranks in the game. The power creep is so strong nowadays that the older heroes just can't justify their role and are often substituted by the new heroes that get present. My favorite hero, Orthros, or as normal people call him Orthos, is sadly a prominent example of that. Because people already have one stalling Celestial in Alna, it's harder to justify another one. This often leads to people substituting him with Alna, Thoran, Wukong, or Scrag. Don't get me wrong, he's still the king of stall, incredibly useful timings and haste benchmarks, but with Zafral finding flexibility and common use alongside the buffs to Mazoth, he finds himself in the very bottom row. The power creep is also shaking the throne underneath the god comp. Iron's god comp is perfectly viable, but Mehira's home isn't as trivial. Tassie gives her a rough fight for her position in many sets, both PvP and PvE wise, and she still has incredible scalings, but she isn't as required as she used to be. Getting her mythic for key functionalities and grabbing Zoroark earlier seems to be the correct route to go. Zoroark, for example, is a hero that is built to handle power creep very well, because he's still replaceable in burst, and it's very hard to introduce a hero that really outclasses him in his role or even competes in it because of how special his furniture plus 3 bonus is. You can also see Elite plus Mortis in the very first row. Let me talk about that for a second. That's Twisted Realm utility, but not just Twisted Realm utility. Once you get to level 398 right now, and probably later on it's going to be higher than that, you get to Fabled. However, he's also able to work in his Iron sets at low Ascension quite decently in campaign. It's also why Ascended Mortis is so far down, because Elite Plus is actually able to withstand some threat and is functional for Abyssal too. Lastly, Khazad is quite a unique case, often finding use in the very late chapters. His kit is incredible, still held back by his fragility, but his fragility alone, because heroes like Tassie, Mehira, Alna, Rowan, and even Peepa and Odin are holding their place in the meta, enjoying his signature item uses immensely, and the use of Mythic gets the bump up. So Khazad Mythic is gonna go up in priorities even when used just for his Storm. He often has his allies deal the damage, and because of this is also the reason his Ascended priority is as low as it is. You can handle having Khazad Mythic for quite a while and get all the niche use if you're skilled enough to use him. Quick mention goes to Talene Ascended. Unlike Lucretia, she's barely holding her place fighting against new heroes. While she's very flexible and for me the single best one hero in the game, it's not impossible in 2 or 3 months she'll be moving 2 or down even 3 slots. This is because the new synergies are getting introduced, and she's not getting any powerful synergies like she used to be, for example with Flora and Orthos in the old days, not as much nowadays. So this guide is utility oriented. Twins still hold their place, whether they're used in the meta or niche sets. They bring way too much to the table, 2 heroes in one, incredible buffs, haste and everything. Despite requiring the allies they bring so much, they often find themselves on some of the most consistent sets very early on in the game. Lucretia still holds strong, being the only one hero set status in the game, closely followed by the flexible Talene, the new addition in meta Alna, Mehira and Zoroth closely following right after in the respective niches. Zafral finds himself in many sets he wasn't used in before, like Thorin and Ainz, enabling those sets, enjoying new heroes like Joker. Khazard is finally being used at its fullest. I'm so happy about that, while Mazoth is getting buffed. Orthos sadly all the way down here and might move down even further, which saddens me personally. And lastly, you complete Ascendance heroes that don't require it. So Mortis and Khazard are going to be 2 heroes that you can ascend but don't absolutely need to. Now, I promised you a surprise before we leave. You should join the Twitch streams. We have quite some fun on those. And let me give you an example because of this. Yo, people, want to see an RNG minute, by the way? Yo, watch this. Watch this. So I finished Arcane Lab, but I'm going to use exactly 2 Duelist tiers. Now you might be asking, yo, Linker, why are you using a Duelist tier? You finished this, right? Now I'm going to go Stargaze. I'm going to do this. I'm going to hold for exactly 1,163 frames. This is going to be a frame perfect thing. And there we go. And then right after, I'm gonna do this. That's simple. That's simple, boys. That's simple. It's really simple. It's really, really simple. So that's something like if you just want to get your gaze, you can just do this RNG minute. It's really simple. Like if you don't get, like, yo, talk to me later. Anyways, like and subscribe, stay up to date. Shout out to the content creators that brought this to my attention and helped me nail the new positioning. Some of the older ones too that I used to talk to, specifically Artie Grub, White Sushi, Reaptide, and Blackie Luke are 5 content creators I wanted to shout out in this one and help me with various parts on these, nailing them just correctly for you so you have your priorities straight. And for now, I've been Linker. Peace.